Hi, 1 Hour Smart Home here, and today we're going to show you how to replace a bathroom faucet. So this faucet has been leaking out of this side right here, and it needs to be replaced. The cartridges for this, it's so old and everything's kind of corroded that even installing new cartridges really wouldn't have done what I wanted to in terms of performance. So we're replacing this with another newer sink. Now, the first thing that you have to do for this is you're actually going to have to turn the water off. So we've already done that, but then you've got to disconnect all these different parts and pieces. So just going to show you what we've got going on and then part of the new fixture that we're going to install. So down here is where you shut off the water. So we're going to shut off the water here. We're going to shut off the water over here. Make sure that these are all the way shut off right here. So we've got that one shut off, and make sure that this one is shut off already. And you can test it by turning the sink back on, which I have got, and there is no water coming out, so you know these are shut off. Now, before you get started on removing this and trying to put a new faucet in, what you got to see is that there's a lot of different points you have to disconnect in order to get to that faucet. I don't know if you can see through here, but basically the access behind the sink is almost impossible to get tools up there. So what that means is we have to disconnect all the plumbing down here, including this drain basin, this drain pipe right here coming from the basin. We need to disconnect the water lines, but then we also need to disconnect the top of this from the wall. Now, if you have a vanity sink, you don't need to worry about this, but with a basin sink, you're going to need to get those two mounting points off so we can remove the whole sink and then get access to the back of this to reinstall it. So next thing we're going to do is remove the water lines and then remove right here these two mounting points. Okay, so we've got the water off, and we just take a crescent wrench and we're going to loosen this right here. We've already loosened it up with a crescent wrench, and then you're going to pull this off. Now there's going to be water in there, so I do recommend putting a towel down below. That's what we've got, just to kind of soak up some of the water. And then you're going to go ahead and do this on the other side too, right here. So let's see if we can get that removed with the crescent wrench while holding the camera. Might be a little bit of a challenge, but we've got it here. So these usually aren't on too tight, and with a crescent wrench you should be able to get these off pretty easily. I'm just going to move the towel over because there is going to be water that comes out here. Now let's see if we can get you a little bit more light and remove this. Okay, so there we go. We've got that. Just use this towel to kind of clean up some of the water that's going to come out of there. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up this drainage pipe back here, and I'm probably going to loosen it here, and that way the sink will be disconnected from the wall when I take over these, take off the two screws holding the basin to the wall. So I'm going to disconnect it right here. Usually you can do this by hand. If not, a pair of pliers or like channel locks is a good option for this. So let's see if I can do this. I'm going to need both hands. So I was able to remove this top fitting. Now I'm going to work on the bottom fitting and get that loosened up. Some of these are in here a little bit tighter than you might think, so getting those channel locks is going to help me get those out, but this will also allow me to rotate the fitting. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to remove right here this fitting, which this is the other end of the fitting that was connected to the shutoff valve right here. So we're going to remove these on both sides, hot and cold water, and you can see we have already removed this is the plunger for the sink. You can really just slide that off. It's just with a clip on the bottom here. And let's see if we can get a little bit more light up into the space. So we're going to remove that with just a crescent wrench. And then you can see the valves up top. That's for the hot and cold water right there in the, right here. That is the hot water for the handle up there at the sink. And then in the middle, right next to where this thing is that controls the drain, that is the actual faucet where the water comes out. So we're going to then also remove these two lines and just get a small crescent wrench and remove those lines so that we can take them off. It just makes getting in here a lot easier, everything that you take off. So you can remove it here, and you can also remove it up here at the drain line. So we're going to do that next, just using a crescent wrench. So we got off one side of the main faucet there, and a crescent wrench sometimes it's hard to get up there, so what I've got is some small pliers, and you can just loosen it. It doesn't take much. And loosen this up, and then you're going to be able to get in there with your fingers and untighten it all the way. So I found that the crescent wrench didn't necessarily fit down here, so I ended up using some pliers like this to loosen this up and then untighten it the rest of the way with my hands. And you can see we've got that other hose disconnected right there. So we'll keep on going and keep removing stuff. We now have both of the connections to the faucet spigot removed, and now we're going to try and remove that by removing the nut that is on there. So try and loosen that up with either a pair of pliers or crescent wrench, just to get it out of the way so that we have more space to access the nuts on each side of here, so that we can remove the sink, or remove the faucet from the top of the sink basin. Now that we have the supply lines removed from the faucet, all that is left is the nut that holds the washer and the faucet onto the sink basin. So we can just loosen that up with a pair of pliers or channel locks or a crescent wrench and get in there and loosen that all the way. After that, you can actually unscrew the fitting there, and you will just be able to pull the faucet out from the top. That T-shaped fitting where the supply lines were connected actually unscrews from the threads that are on the faucet itself. So you can unscrew that with a little leverage by holding the faucet on top and unscrewing the T-shaped fitting from underneath with your hands or a wrench. Just remove the faucet, and we're on to the next step, which is to remove the two handles, which are secured by nuts on the back side as well. So in order to get some of the new sink parts on and the old sink parts off, it did end up that we are going to have to take the basin off. So we've got to remove these two screws. You're able to fit a small screwdriver up in here, so that is what I've done. I've loosened it, and then you can just loosen it by hand the rest of the way to take this off the wall. And then once these screws are off, this thing is completely disconnected and we are ready to pull it off the wall. Because I had already disconnected the supply lines and the drain line, I was able to just lift the sink basin right off the top of the pedestal, and because I had removed those screws from the wall. If you've got any kind of resistance, you should just make sure that you've got everything disconnected before you try and lift up off the top of the pedestal. And it was no big deal, but it does probably weigh anywhere between 20 and 50 pounds, depending on what your material is used for that basin. We pulled the basin off, and now we've got the sink, we've got the existing drain, and we've got the wall anchors. We removed the screws from that, and this is now ready for us to take off the other parts on the sink and install our new faucet. So now that we have the sink removed, we've got these two remaining nuts that are holding this on. We couldn't access them from underneath the sink unless we had something that was a little bit easier to get there. But what I used to loosen them up once they're on here was a pair of channel locks, just coming in at it kind of from the side, and was able to loosen those up. Now, some people will have these a little bit looser, and maybe you can do them by hand, or maybe you can get a channel lock at an angle in there and get this thing unscrewed, but I was unable to do that. So we took the sink top off, and then all you got to do is loosen these up by hand, and you'll be able to pop off the handle up here on top of this. Now we've got this, this is the last sink handle that we got to get off, so we just loosen this up by hand. We got to take it all the way to the bottom of the threads. You can see this takes a long time, so if you're underneath the sink, this can be harder. In a vanity sink, it's a little bit easier because you've got more room to work with typically, and maybe a little bit better access, but underneath one of these pedestal sinks, it's very hard to get back there because the amount of room you have to reach your hands back behind the sink and the wall is minimal. At the end of the threads, sometimes there's gunk on there, plumber's putty, or maybe the threads are not the best, and you might need a pair of pliers or channel locks to remove it the rest of the way, or a plumbing wrench if you've got it. But right at the end there, and it doesn't want to come off the last couple threads. Okay, there we go. So we've got that off, and now you can see the handle is off, okay? And we have a sink ready to put in our new handle. So this is where the new fixture will go, and it's a good idea to clean this off. The new faucet that I'm putting on and new handles, they don't need plumber's putty. They have a little gasket on the back side. So you really want to clean these off so that it doesn't make a mess and doesn't look bad once you put those handles on. So I'm going to clean that up. Now we just need to remove the existing drain body from this one. We're going to save the parts up here for this, the trap, so we want to keep that. But we just remove it by loosening this plastic nut here for the trap, but then we'll loosen this down here with some channel locks and get this thing pulled off. We've got all the other parts removed from the trap, and now all we need to do is basically screw and push down on this and get this rubber gasket here holding this in up, and this drain body will come out the front or the top of the sink. So what I'm going to do is just push and screw and remove this gasket, kind of slide it up here so that I can push this out through the front of the sink, I guess. We've got everything out of the sink, all of the faucet handles as well as the drain. And what we've got left is the drain body. We're going to put that in first. And this just unscrews like so. So you can insert this from the top and this piece from the back. And then you're going to tighten down these nuts on the back and make sure you've got a good seal with the drain body and the sink. So that's what we're going to do next. We've got the drain body in, and now we're just going to screw this down until it is tight with the sink, and then use some channel locks or pliers to really tighten this up firmly to the sink to make sure that we're not going to have any leaks. Now we're inserting the faucet. We just insert that through the hole, and what we're going to do then is thread on the washers and nut that hold this together. Now we have the washer threaded on with the nut securing it, and we're going to put the handles on. And we made sure that the faucet was aligned, so you just want to do that. You'll have some adjustment. One other thing, when you are tightening anything down to ceramic like this, this sink basin, you don't want to go over tight, because what you can do is put too much stress in the ceramic and actually crack it. So just be careful when you're doing that. We now have the faucet installed, and it's easy to set these sinks upright like so that you can access both sides. And it's tightened on there in terms of what we've got for the drain. And then you can see down here, we have got the spigot or the faucet connected. So the next thing that we are going to do is connect the handles on each side. So we're just going to put this one in here, and how these work is you just tighten it down right like so with this gasket, and then install the handles. So we've got the handles installed. You want to make sure you orient the handles in the direction, obviously, that you want them to turn on. So I like them flat like this, and then on, they flip over to the middle. Typically cold is on your right and hot is on your left. So just remember that when you're installing these. And these installed very simply. Let's see if we can get some light down in there. All you need to do is just twist this gasket here. So this holds in the faucet handle, and then you screw these screws in, and that's what's going to be able to, let's see if we can get that to focus there. That's going to be able to hold it in place. So you hand tighten it with your hand, screw them down, and then use these screws to really tighten everything down a little bit more. So that is how you put the handles in. And then all you're going to have to do is, we've got these quick connects. You just snap quick connect these, and then you're going to have all these connected, and it's super easy. So we've got this quick connect fitting here, and this connects the two faucets to the the two handles to the faucet. So all you do is you press down on this, and it will go right onto the rubber gasket like so. Okay, make sure it clicks in there. And then you can do the same for these two gaskets here. So it just clicks right in. You can see there's a little piece you push in, and then it will connect directly to the gasket. After that, we're ready to put the trap on, and then we can start mounting this back up on the pedestal. So we've got one hole here that was stripped out, and we've got one good anchor that we're going to reuse to hold this basin onto the wall so that if someone leans on it, it doesn't break. And what I like to use is what's called a snap toggler. This can hold up to 100 pounds. These things can even be used to mount cabinets on walls. These are the strongest way to hold something on a wall if you don't have a stud. I love these things. These are awesome. And all you do is you just slide it in like so. You slide the end in there like so, and then all you do is you pull it taut, and then get this plastic piece all the way to the end, and then you snap these ends off and put a screw in there, and it will hold whatever you want onto the wall using that. We got the basin back on with the faucet up there connected. So you can see the basin is mounted back on top of the pedestal. And in order to do that, we just set it back down on the pedestal and made sure everything was aligned. The next thing that we did was reconnect those anchors into the snap togglers that we put in the wall just to secure this from movement so that can't fall down on anybody if somebody grabs it. And then we took the drain pipes and we just tightened these up with our hand here. Just tighten up the drain pipes, and you can see we tightened this one up. So we set down the basin, got everything aligned, and then tightened it up and tightened up the snap toggler screws and set the basin with the faucet on here. So we'll keep going. So we are nearing the end of this project, and what we've got here is this is a 1/2 inch fitting, and our new supply line is a 3/8 fitting, so we need to put an adapter on there. This is 1/2 inch female OD to 3/8 inch OD, and this will just screw on. You can see the white stuff on there is Teflon tape, and that is what I have installed. This is the adapter that you would need. I'll include a link to something similar below, as well as to Teflon tape. And then this will just screw on. You can screw it on hand tight at first, and then you can tighten it down with a crescent wrench, and then you can tighten this on there as well. So we're going to do that and get back to you here and show you the installation when we have them both connected. Okay, we have the supply lines connected and everything is ready to go for this faucet. So I'm just going to open up the water valve here, make sure nothing is leaking, and you know, it's always good to kind of like feel the fittings, and you want to check this after probably 20-30 minutes, then check again after a couple hours. So I have just opened up both these supply lines, and now we are going to, so I can feel one of them is leaking a little bit. We'll tighten that up, but let's take a look at the new faucet that was installed here. And there we go. Voila. Now let's make sure it comes out the other one. I do recommend running the faucet for probably 5-6 minutes just to get the gunk out of there. You'd be surprised when they manufacture these. There's a lot of manufacturing grime and grease inside that faucet. This is a hand faucet. You know, I'm not using it to drink water out of. But if I was, I would want to run it a little bit longer, just get the oil out of there and everything that's in there from when they manufacture it. So the faucet is now installed. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, please subscribe, and we'll include links to this new faucet here, as well as any of the parts and pieces we used and some of the tools we used today. So thanks for watching 1 Hour Smart Home, and please take a look at our website, onehoursmarthome.com, or click on any of our other videos. Thank you.